Have you tried to turn the desktop audio down? Maybe that stops the echo. You hear an echo in these streams. So we'll test that.
We did a stream that was called A Funny Thing Happened on the way to Venezuela. Venezuela is one of these weird countries where I stay out of it. There are so many blob ops in Venezuela. Venezuela is completely bipartisan blob ops. One of the reasons we're having a difficult time trying to get the National Endowment for Democracy shut down.
I've been hopping on these streams wanting to do market research and then just play chess. I gotta get this account to 2,000.
Right next door to us, it's got Infinity Oil. It is the land of
My elo with this account
under
is
control until
low.
1998.
I want to boost
This is
it.
like the Iran, like a couple hundred miles from Miami. It's right there. And if we get it, we get so much.
I want to boost the elo.
It's not, and I have so many other fish to fry that I just look at the Venezuela thing and I go, all right, CIA is doing shit in Venezuela. Is what there's so many allies that I have who are invested in that.
Queens are coming off.
So I just don't talk about it much. It's not something like Ukraine where it's like a $300 billion investment and like the whole geopolitical Earth axis tilts on it. So
I think this guy's playing that on purpose.
like stream or two we did
I don't understand why.
on the way to Venezuela. And I talked about all the dynamics with Elon, with Trump, with the Trump base, with the bipartisan stuff. So I won't rehash that all here, but the reason that I wanted to, on the limited brain power that I have tonight, do this Venezuela thing is because Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone dropped a new video.
Yeah, I could check it. We'll watch this. Is that gonna be made? Made.
That I think is deceptively
We're in India.
for understanding the structure of blob ops. This is about an hour video, and I just want to listen to this tonight and annotate alongside with you guys, because I think the story that will unfold over this video is one that will help explain the structure of blob ops globally. It will help explain the nature of the relationship between the U.S. government, the donor drafter class, the NGOs, and private paramilitary groups, and that same structure everywhere around the world. And there are many things happening around Venezuela right now that are interesting to tee off on independently. So, what I'm going to start with is a couple of things to note. So if you remember, everyone wanted Trump to win the Nobel Peace Prize. So if you remember, the Nobel Peace Prize this year was won by Maria Corina Machado. Nobel Peace Prize. A glowing review by the New York Times. And you'll notice this is kind of the only time that the New York Times will praise someone that Donald Trump is praising. Maria Corina Machado actually dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, if you remember. Anyway, so she dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize. This is the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado. The Nobel Peace Prize brings hope and scrutiny to democratic struggle, right? Okay, so We talked about Maria Corina Machado before in the context of this network dating back to the early 1980s, really, around Iran-Contra. Elliot Abrams was the big Venezuela guy under Trump 1. Elliot Abrams. He was appointed by Mike Pompeo as special representative for Venezuela. Elliot Abrams. He was the special representative for the State Department for Venezuela. He was in foreign policy under Reagan, Bush, Trump, Council on Foreign Relations. His involvement in the Iran-Contra scandal under Reagan in the 1980s led to his conviction in 1991 on 2 counts of unlawfully withholding information from Congress. Boy, bring that back. Can you imagine someone today being criminally charged for unlawfully withholding information from Congress? When's the last time unlawfully, I mean, maybe you could argue, is that kind of like, you know, when they said Steve Bannon defied a subpoena? But you don't see that very often. Anyway, he was arrested during Iran-Contra, and then under Trump 1, ran our whole Venezuela policy. But Maria Corina Machado was also at the same Yale World's Fellow program that Alexei Navalny from Russia was at. And I believe she's also at Florida International University. Yeah. Maria Corina Machado, she's at the democracy program.
Gonna pull this queen out.
Which is, a major CIA recruiting center. Juan Guaido is there. We're going to be talking more about Juan Guaido in a second here. But this is not to say, I'm staying out of it. I'm not saying that's good, bad, ugly. It is what it is. And of course, the dean of FIU, the dean of this law school, was Alex Acosta, who was the prosecutor who gave the sweetheart deal to Jeffrey Epstein. So it's a tangled web. Oh, this is the other thing that was funny that came out this week on Venezuela. Did you guys see this headline? I thought this was hysterical. Trump admin authorizes CIA covert action in Venezuela. I love this headline so much. Could we be so kind as to announce to the world when we are authorizing CIA covert action in every country? Have you ever seen a headline like this? Be real. Have you ever seen a headline that straight up says, "We are authorizing CIA covert action"? In chat, let me know, have you ever seen this headline about any country anywhere? Kind of not covert anymore if you're announcing in the New York Times that you're authorizing covert action.
I really like these Citadel Men's Rebound for white walking shoes. I definitely recommend this pair to you.
I just love it, right? Because, this is called the presidential finding. I've talked about this a lot of times in the context of USAID, right? One of the reasons that USAID is the main funnel for covert action is because you don't need written authorization of covert action like you do with the CIA. Every covert action has to be authorized by the President of the United States. After the Church Committee hearing, after the Church Committee reforms of the late 1970s, in order to stop presidents from being able to do CIA action, but then say, "Oh, I didn't know about it," there became a legal requirement for something called a presidential finding. I'll just show you guys presidential finding. The presidential finding is a presidential directive required by statute to be delivered to certain congressional committees, the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, to justify the commencement of covert operations by the CIA. Okay.
Gonna be honest, I think that was a mistake.
Well, it just goes to the, so like for example, so Joe Biden was privy to all of these CIA covert actions for 40 years before he was the vice president under Obama, because he was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which gets access to presidential findings. So it's again this Biden CIA family. Then say to Kamala Harris when she was in the Senate and moved over to the Senate and was quickly put on the Senate Intelligence Committee. But it's not normally announced in the New York Times, the presidential finding. So that happened this week. At the same time, we're doing some pretty unprecedented stuff, like we are blowing up Venezuelan drug dealers. This, to my knowledge, has never been done before. So there's a lot going on in Venezuela. But we're going to go back to a time, and this is also another reason why USAID has so many Republican backers. It's because of USAID's involvement in Venezuela. Crypto is big in Venezuela right now. You know, when I talk about why I'm long, you know, why my whole bullish on bullshit thing, then why it's off this era of us trying to regime change Venezuela. And things come to a head during the first Trump admin with Juan Guaido. By the way, tomorrow, Grokpedia goes online. Elon is soft launching a buggy version of his own Wikipedia, Grokpedia, tomorrow, which is going to be potentially game-changing as like a level set, you know, new Wikipedia. So Juan Guaido lost the vote in Venezuela, but the U.S. declared him the president anyway. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, this is what the Wikipedia says. He never held power, and yet Wikipedia still refers to him as the president of Venezuela. For 4 years, that's so funny. Okay, so what I want to get to is a particular thing called the Bay of Piglets. Let me see if I can... Bay of Piglets, Venezuela. So you guys may be, okay, a bizarre plot to capture. This is how the BBC presented this. This is a July 2020 BBC reporting. So you guys know the Bay of Pigs. That was the big 1961 disaster that created this big schism between JFK and the CIA over Cuba. This was a Rolando Masfer type plot. If you guys remember, during our JFK files, we went over the case of Rolando Masfer, who was a CIA-backed Cuban mercenary who tried to take over a portion using his own hundreds of mercenaries boarding ships to militarily conquer parts of Haiti in order to use that as a launching point against Cuba. And they had backing from the CIA, but opposition from the State Department. And the State Department ended up organizing the arrest of them, and the CIA pressed the Justice Department to drop the charges. The decision by the Justice Department to seek a grand jury indictment against Rolando Masfer and certain of his associates is a potentially explosive matter which could result in extensive damage to CIA activities in Miami. So this drug dealer and private mercenary on CIA payroll goes and is a hothead and tries to invade Haiti on his own with a group of a couple hundred of his thug friends, fails, and the Justice Department indicts him, and the CIA steps in and says, wait, Justice Department. back off. He belongs to intelligence. Does that sound familiar? Any bells ringing? And then 5 months later, during the past year, we have spent a good deal of time working with the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney in Miami on possible problems in connection with the trial of our asset, Rolando Masfer. It's the same thing. It's the same frickin' jurisdiction. The defense has only to obtain testimony from one of the defendants, or summon as defense witnesses one or more disaffected former agents of the CIA station in order to begin a chain reaction, surfacing much detail concerning CIA operations. State's strong desire for prosecution of this particular group prevailed over our worries. But you can just read this. Justice is blind, right? Whether or not someone is prosecuted is not about whether or not they committed a crime. It's about whether the State Department or the Central Intelligence Agency wins. So this is like a big turf war and foreign policy dispute between the CIA and the State Department in the 1960s over Cuba policy. But this is a common thing. This is kind of the story of United Fruit, using Bay of Pigs-style private mercenaries to conquer parts of Guatemala and Nicaragua. This is, as I mentioned, with Rolando Masfer. There was a Bay of Pigs-style thing in Haiti. There was not the actual Bay of Pigs in Cuba. But as it was reported, the government of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela announced Venezuela's armed forces had repelled an armed incursion. Operation Gideon was a deeply flawed coup attempt. But what would compel exiled Venezuelans and former U.S. Special Forces soldiers to join a plan that from the outset looked like a suicide mission? It's a story that left straight out of a 20th century playbook of Latin American conspiracies. It made the Bay of Pigs look like D-Day because the Bay of Pigs failed in 1961.
They are allowed the opponent to win material.
It was repelled by Cuban counterintelligence and aimed to be a big disaster. So the Bay of Pigs look like D-Day, quit one commentator, referring to the failed U.S. financed invasion of Fidel Castro's Cuba in 1961. Operation Gideon is a staggering tale of hubris, incompetence, and treachery. 8 men were killed by Venezuelan armed forces off the coastal town of Macuto. Dozens of others were captured and remained in jail in Caracas. Less than a handful escaped. And coinciding with the height of the coronavirus pandemic, it attracted less attention outside the Americas than it might have otherwise. At the heart of the failed mission was a former U.S. Special Forces soldier, Jordan Goudreau. And that's going to be the star of our
You dodged the check.
of our stream.
It's my favorite
Oh my gosh.
This will win a queen.
Sorry. That would be the star of our stream, as the journalist Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone managed to get
This capture
Jordan Goudreau for a 1-hour interview
night is no longer.
as he is facing years in prison on federal arms trafficking
This is a
charges,
fine move.
to explain the real story behind this and what really happened, which is fucking crazy. I mean, this is like,
This is the way to win a
what a
night.
get by Max.
This is a fine move.
So, sorry, give me a
This will
second.
win a night.
Get back to our, okay.
You found a safer square for your.
This is how it has been reported. Medic, marksman, veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, and recipient of 3 Bronze Stars medals, Goudreau was way out of his depth. A daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia, he intoned in a widely distributed video published hours after it began.
Your pieces by
So
moving.
again, from Colombia, the CIA foothold over all of Latin America, Colombia. Our men are, although that's getting complicated now. Our men are continuing to fight right now. Our units have been activated in the south, west, and east of Venezuela.
Yes, this is the way.
Does your birth certificate
That
look
night
like
was
an
3 for the
ancient
tape.
artifact? With GovPlus, you can apply for a new birth certificate 100% online with a single secure form. No more hours of tedious paperwork. Simply snap a photo of your ID with your phone and track your application progress in real time. So you don't have to wonder when your documents will arrive. Never again worry about damaged or lost documents. Check out GovPlus today.
Allow X content? Yeah. I'll be tweeted out, okay? This is audio?
Venezolanos y compañeros de la Fuerza Armada, superiores y subalternos,
Hoy 3 de mayo,
This raid was launched.
Tarjetas especiales del ejército de los Estados Unidos.
This is Justin Goodrow.
At 1700 hours, a daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia deep into the heart of Caracas. Our men are continuing to fight right now. Our units have been activated in the south, west, and east of Venezuela. Commander Nieto is with me, is co-located, and Commander Sakay is on the ground now fighting.
We have a weird habit in Venezuela. Just saying a CIA covert action is playing out in your country. Why do we keep announcing our covert? Why do we keep doing this? What other country do we do this in? We are in the middle of a surprise military attack on your country. A secret military operation is underway. Let me live tweet my secret mission to overthrow your government. Shh. Don't tell anybody as I record a video on social media drawing out our plans. Now, of course, they're doing this in order to provide moral support to the troops on the ground to say the U.S. has your back. But you can see how that's a double-edged sword, you know? Like here, even this, Trump telling, people, yeah, the CIA is, I've authorized covert action. That's a signal to the Venezuelan opposition forces to be braver, to have what Maria Stephan would call a higher risk tolerance, to go out and try to undertake bold action to overthrow the government, because the CIA is on the ground. We got your back. So rise up and we'll help you up. We're announcing that we're helping you up.
Why are you naked? Because my t-shirt sucks. Look at Gibson. He's wearing a true classic tee. It fits him tight in all the right places, but leaves a perfect amount of room in the front. He looks so damn good in that shirt, he can basically do whatever the hell he wants around here. Yeah, boss? You're a goddamn stud. Thanks, boss. True classic is designed to enhance the male physique in all the right places. Right, Gibson? That's right, boss. I have strong arms, but also a little bit of a gut. But you wouldn't know because I wear True Classic. And if you're a skinny guy, True Classic is tight around the arms and accentuates your biceps. How can Gibson afford premium t-shirts? He's the worst salesman here.
So this is the same thing that's done in the censorship industrial complex. They try to keep everything hush-hush. Network partners that it's safe to do this, that we're all on side together, that we'll all have your back, that it's okay to do this. Then they get caught by people like me. We're like, hey, I just caught your covert action plan. Thanks for announcing your covert action plan. But this is part of the functional necessity of doing covert action at scale. When you're doing covert action like, laundering money into a bank account, only a couple people need to know. When you're doing covert action like overthrowing a government with a country
that's why this thing,
whatever, like, at a certain point, the cat kind of has to get at least a little bit out of the bag. Alright, and let's get back to this one. Okay, I'm just doing any of this.
And Commander Sakay is
Hola, Dios. Comandante, esta libertad número criminal, que tener quien se lo encargado. Somos utilidades por tal.
This was not true. Some supporters in Venezuela may have been tipped off, but Operation Gideon, named after a biblical character who triumphed over a much larger army, consisted of less than 60 poorly armed men and one woman. And in reality, the operation had already descended into bloody chaos. Is that why he looks a little stressed, maybe? In 2018, Jordan Goudreau founded Silvercorp USA, a private security contractor. Its Instagram account is a mix of images of military prowess and contrast. In February 2019, he was hired, and this is in Miami. In February 2019, he was hired to provide security for a Richard Branson-sponsored gig on the Colombian side of the Venezuelan border. Richard Branson owns Virgin Airlines and is in that soup. The purpose of the concert was to pressure Nicolas Maduro into allowing humanitarian aid into Venezuela. Guys, are you catching what I'm catching? So this CIA-backed private paramilitary mercenary army started off as private security for what appears to be a CIA-backed music concert to pressure the head of state in Venezuela into allowing U.S. aid trucks packed with guns into the government's opposition. Just so you guys see what I'm talking about. U.S.-backed opposition attempted to ram several trucks loaded with boxes of U.S. aid and humanitarian aid.
That sucks.
And I guess the big story was that the Venezuelan government destroyed the U.S. aid trucks. How funny is it, right? Like, they held a music concert to get crowds of people into the streets. This is what I'm telling you guys.
Oh, no.
Dua Lipa, Bono, Pussy Riot, friggin' Taylor Swift. Like, these big music concerts, they're just like ground zero for this. I even saw this with Obama's library. I was going to do a tweet on this. 2019 shipping of humanitarian aid. Humanitarian aid. And I guess the big story was that the Venezuelan government destroyed the U.S. aid trucks. How funny is it, right? Like, they held a music concert to get crowds of people into the streets. This is what I'm telling you guys, all right? Dua Lipa, Bono, Pussy Riot, friggin' Taylor Swift.
Is that a real name of
These
the
big
group?
music concerts, they're just like ground
Is that
zero
real?
for this.
Oh my god, it's real.
I even saw this with Obama's library. I was going to do a tweet on this. 2019 shipping of humanitarian aid. Okay. So Barack Obama, when the Obama Presidential Center opens next year, it will be a hub for change. A place for people from all over the world to come together and take what they learned back to their own communities. It's going to be a fucking CIA recruiting center from all over the world. From the Philippines, from Hungary, from Germany, from Poland, from Somalia, from Venezuela, to come together, form a cluster network, learn the community organizing skills for the CIA-backed opposition movements, and take what they learned back to their own communities. It's the same shit he's doing through the Obama Foundation. And when you look at what they're advertising, what is the Obama Center going to have? Music. Look at that, like, music. They're gonna do it there too. I'm telling you guys.
This is where I talked about what I liked in my first box. If I hadn't already been using them since the beginning of the year. Cook Unities, the first chef-to-you meal delivery service made up of 70 chefs. Every week, award-winning chefs make hundreds of globally inspired meals for many kinds of...
That's literally what it's going to be. Okay. So, starts off with the Dua Lipa CIA shit in order to pressure the government to accept U.S. aid. We're off to a great start.
The Dua Lipa
A month
CIA
before the
shit.
concert in Caracas, Juan Guaido had declared himself the president of Venezuela. This is the CIA-backed opposition figure. More than 50 nations recognized him as the president, including the U.S., even though he got like 7% of the vote or something. Juan Guaido had hoped the aid envoy, championed by the Branson gig, would help sweep him to power. So, the guy who lost the election, but was recognized by the U.S. as the president anyway, was hoping a U.S. aid convoy, championed by a billionaire's backed music concert, would sweep him to power. But the U.S. aid trucks, the 23 U.S. aid trucks, were blocked at the border. Probably because previous U.S. aid trucks had been filled with guns. And again, I'm not pro-Maduro. If he gets regime changed, I don't really care. I don't like communism. We're only looking at this through the lens of A, it's funny, B, it's relevant because there's a lot of money and a lot of stuff in the news about it. Like Trump lost the Nobel Peace Prize because, you know, it went to someone involved in this very network. And again, I think she's probably a great person, and we're probably on sides on most things. I'm not casting any shade. This is just so that you can see how the structure looks around the world. So Guaido's supporters began to consider removing Maduro in a military operation. The first training camp was set up in the Colombian city of Macau in June, with men getting fit, gaining knowledge, but we had economic difficulties. There was a conspiracy desperately in need of cash. Step forward, Jordan Goudreau. Back in the U.S., he had already made contact with Venezuela's opposition. On a trip to Colombia in July, Goudreau was introduced to General Cliver Alcala, the founder of the training camp, who had been close to Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, but then fell out with Maduro and went into exile. The two alpha males joined forces. Okay. Goudreau said he would arrange the finances and further meetings with Miami. This time with Juan Guaido's presidential commission, a body tasked with secretly exploring ways of toppling the government. We researched around 22 regime change scenarios. Maybe a third of them involved the use of force, said J.J. Rendon, a fiercely right-wing Venezuelan, Florida-based political strategist. Here he is in Miami. We didn't talk with any other military contractors except Jordan Goudreau's Silvercorp, but we reviewed them big time. Goudreau said he had business backers, the donor drafter class, people who would, multinational businesses that would financially profit from a turnover of the Venezuelan government. People who would invest in the military operation on the understanding they would reap the economic rewards under a Guaido-led administration in Venezuela. Now this, my friends, is kind of
People
where we're
sell
going to be
drugs.
spending the rest of the night tonight. This sentence is the single best way to understand George Soros. George Soros.
You can't buy a fire truck.
George Soros. This right here, business backers. Now, this is early in the coup plotting. Early on in the regime change. It's being backed, even though this is being backed by the U.S. government. It's being financed by essentially
Seems badass.
financial investors. People who would invest in the military operation on the understanding they would reap the economic rewards under a Guaido-led admin in Venezuela. When George Soros foments color revolutions, it is for the same reason. It's because the Soros Management Fund invests in portfolio companies.
Oh, here we go.
Reap economic rewards if a different government was in power, and created climate mandates, or bought or gave a mining license to Rio Tinto, or who restructured their debt so that a Soros currency bet would make money. This is what it's all about. It is not about ideology. Soros will back a right-wing Nazi group like the Azov Battalion against a more center-left leaning government in Yanukovych's Ukraine in 2014. And he will back a leftist government against a right-wing government, as in Brazil 2022 backing Lula over Bolsonaro. And then Lula installs these ethanol fuel mandates, forcing 200 million Brazilians to buy George Soros products in the form of the fuel companies, the clean fuel companies he had pre-invested in.
Hard to pin down to tie your shoes. With feet for your shoes.
Rap group.
Places. Tie them once and for all. Just let them eat.
Oh shit, it's public.
Try Fitbio to make your feet
It's crazy. I went to 26.
This is a custom sticker, and this is a custom label. Both are printed on vinyl and have a matte finish, and both can be printed and cut to any shape. So what's the difference? Stickers include a paper backing that's cut to the same shape of the sticker itself. This protects each sticker individually and gives it a great look even before it's applied to anything. Labels come printed on a roll. Each roll can hold between 50 and 5,000 labels depending on the order. They're designed for quick and easy peeling. Our stickers use a permanent adhesive, while our labels use a strong adhesive that's slightly easier to take off. Both are designed to stand up to rain, snow, and sunlight, and both are dishwasher safe. It only takes a few seconds to order, and every sticker meal purchase comes with a free online proof, free shipping, and blazing fast turnaround. If you plan on giving away or selling your stickers, we recommend going with one of our regular custom stickers. If you need to do a lot of peeling and placing, then we recommend going with our custom rollers. Try custom stickers or custom labels from Sticker Mule today for just $9.
A contract was signed on October 16, 2019 for an operation to capture, detain, remove Nicolas Maduro, remove the current regime, and install the recognized Venezuelan President Juan Guaido. Goudreau would get a $1.5 million retainer and later collect over $200 million. This is what the BBC reports. And this is Maduro holding up the contract. Holy shit. For those made aware of the hush-hush plan, there was elation. For years, we were just by ourselves with our own resources and no support from any political system, said Javier Nido, an exiled former captain of Venezuela's National Guard. But this time, I was very excited because the plan was made with the support of men like J.J. Rendon, Juan Guaido, and his strategic team. However, within days, the bad blood surfaced. Jordan Goudreau demanded the $1.5 million retainer. The commission wanted to see evidence of the backers first. The former Special Forces soldier could not produce any, and a gathering at J.J. Rendon's Oceanside, Miami home ended badly. He became moody and disrespectful, Rendon said of Goudreau. Our last meeting was very, very uncomfortable. This is not going anywhere. I want you to leave my premises. Even so, he paid Goudreau $50,000 to cover expenses. So this is funny. So he would get $1.5 million retainer, and the $200 million was what, a success fee? If they successfully toppled the government? It's a big difference. 1.5 million retainer, 200 million success fee if you really overthrow the government. Because every country has these people. When we overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014, there was a Jordan Goudreau on the ground in the right sector. When we toppled the government of Bangladesh in 2024, there's multiple of these. These figures who are these intermediaries between the business backers, the government agencies, and the on-the-ground paramilitaries. Okay, so yada yada, they go through with this mission anyway, and that's kind of, I think, all we need for this. But the mission failed. And then when it failed, the U.S. government threw Goudreau under the bus, as they often do. Saying we didn't authorize this, yada yada.